And we are live.
Okay, good evening, committee members, members of the public, applicants, agents. Welcome to the Committee of Adjustment meeting for October 6th, 2021. We'll now call the committee meeting to order, as this meeting is being held electronically due to COVID-19 pandemic. I will go over some rules of procedure for the benefit of the members and the viewing public. So this meeting is being streamed live on the City of Brantford YouTube account. All members of the committee will be muted upon entering the meeting and throughout when they are not speaking in order to reduce background noise. All webcams for the committee members shall be turned on throughout the meeting. If a member needs to leave their seat, please leave the camera on so that we recognize that you are away. Staff will be requested to join the video meeting should they need to answer questions of members. Movers and seconders of motion shall be indicated by raising your hand on the camera, and the chair will call out who the mover and seconder are. All members of the committee participating online video conference will vote by a physical show of hands, and a recorded vote will be taken by the clerk. Applicants, agents, owners, and delegations are participating as well on this Zoom call. As all persons who wish to speak to the items on the agenda were required to register by 9 a.m. Any delegations received in written format have been provided to the committee members and will form part of the meeting record. In the event that a connection or service interruption does occur, if that does affect the quorum of the committee, we may recess the meeting up to 15 minutes to regain quorum. If quorum is not achieved, the meeting is adjourned. So I'll just confirm with the clerk that we have taken attendance.
Yes, roll call has been noted.
Thank you. And I'll ask the committee members at this time if there are any conflict of interest that should be noted. And I see no hands, so no conflicts. At this point, I'll just read some more information about specific to the application we'll be hearing this evening. So this meeting is held in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act. The purpose of this meeting is to discuss minor variance, consent, and severance applications, and to give members of the committee the opportunity to ask questions, express concerns, or provide comment either in support or against applications. Each hearing is generally dealt with in accordance with the order that they appear on the agenda. In the event that the hearing is not completed on this date, it will be adjourned to a later time at which time the committee may hear further submissions. At the conclusion of each hearing, this committee will make a decision on each application. The names of those individuals who speak on any item tonight will appear within the meeting minutes. Anyone wishing to receive further notice of any hearing, including a copy of the committee's decision, please contact the city's clerk department. Minor variance decisions are final if there are no appeals after 20 days after the committee's decision. And consent decisions are final if there are no appeals 20 days after the notice of the decision has been issued. So tonight's order of delegations will be as follows. We will work through our agenda one item at a time. We will have the applicant or agent or owner join us at the table to present the details of their request. We will have an opportunity for committee members to ask questions of clarification. Next, we'll have staff provide us a detailed presentation and recommendation from the staff report, followed by committee questions of clarification. We will then open the meeting to the public and hear from any delegations who have registered to speak, and followed by questions of clarification. One more round of questions of the applicant or the agent if there were any comments or concerns that needed to be addressed from the public portion. And if all is well, we will look to the committee to move a motion and we will make a decision. So with all that being said, we do have 6 items on our agenda this evening. Our first item is minor variance application A36 2021 for 300 Fairview Drive. We believe there are a few individuals to speak to this perhaps represented by one of those individuals.
Yeah, that would be.
Mohammed, okay, welcome. I'll just allow you to introduce yourself, provide your address for the record, introduce anyone else who will be speaking to this item, representing the application, and just provide the details of your request.
Yep. Thanks for your time. Thanks, everyone. My name is Mohammed. I'm the applicant on the minor variance application. I'm speaking on behalf of the church and at 300 Fairview Drive in Brantford, and the sign company, which is located in Hamilton. My address is 71 Gregorio Avenue in Ancaster, Ontario. The existing ground sign is a bit outdated. It was installed back in 1991. The proposed new ground sign is similar sign and size as the existing sign. However, we would like to add or implement an electronic display. The electronic display will be only used as static message to advertise the church news or events and dates. There'll be no flashing or animation or video to the display. And that's the main purpose, just for dates and events and news of the church or the academy. Due to proximity to the residential zone, we are required to, it's required the minor variance. That's about it. Let me know if you have any questions or clarifications.
Okay, thank you for the information. I'll ask the committee members if they have any questions of the agent. And Michael?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you hear me okay? Okay,
Yes, I can.
just one question of the applicant. Does the flashing ability of the sign dictate the size of the sign?
The flashing, there's two parts of the sign. There's a static sign, and the lower portion is electronic. That electronic can be limited via software, limit the flashing. So it can be only the software can limit it to messaging only with no animation. I'm not sure if you're referencing the size of the letters or of the sign.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I was just curious if a sign is flashing, if it has to be limited in size overall.
We do comply with the sign area in that zone. Reading the bylaw, and the staff members can chime in on this. I'm not aware that there is. I'm not aware that we exceed or we exceed the square footage or the allowable square footage for the sign.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the committee to the agent? Chris?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to know, is the sign going to be located in the same direction as the existing sign?
Yes, the sign, the new proposed sign is exactly located where the existing sign is. The existing sign being removed and replaced with the new proposed sign.
And so it's going to be facing the same way as the existing sign?
Correct.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions of the applicant? So seeing none, we'll bring staff to the table to present the details of the staff report and the recommendation. Joshua, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll give Sean a second to bring the presentation up. Perfect. Thank you, Sean. So good evening, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Joshua Scram. I'm a long-range planner with the City of Brantford, and I'm here to present application A36 2021 regarding 300 Fairview Drive. We'll just jump to the next slide, please. So planning staff have received a minor variance application for 300 Fairview. This property is also municipally known as 290. The subject lands are located at the southeast corner of Fairview Drive and North Park Street. The lands are approximately 3 acres in size and occupied by the Brantford Central Baptist Church and the Central Baptist Academy. The subject lands are designated residential in the new official plan, that's Schedule 3, the land use plan for the city's new official plan envisioning our city 2051, and it's zoned institutional in the city's zoning bylaw. So as indicated by the applicant, proposing to retrofit an existing ground sign, which is oriented in a east-west location along Fairview. The current double sign is located adjacent to the front entrance of the church. The proposed double-sided electronic sign will be used by the church to display static information and text regarding the church's info and events. To facilitate the proposed retrofitting, the applicant is seeking relief from section 478.4.12 to permit flashing illumination of a sign, double-sided electronic message display, to be located 14 meters from a residential zone, whereas a minimum of 40 meters is required. So we'll jump to the next slide. So just looking at some of the site photos, this slide here and the following slide, the subject property is located along a minor arterial road, that's Fairview Drive, and a major collector, which is North Park Street. And it's surrounded by a diverse range of land uses, including higher density residential apartments, uses directly north, and lower density residential properties to the south, and a variety of commercial and institutional uses to the east and west. Next slide, please. So when evaluating the merits of the minor variance application, the Committee of Adjustment obviously must be satisfied with the 4 tests of Section 45(1) of the Planning Act. And so to facilitate the retrofitting of the current ground sign in its current location, the minor variance application, as I'd mentioned, seeks relief from Section 478.4.12 of the municipal code, which establishes that no flashing illumination of signs shall be permitted within 40 meters of any residential zone, except where the construction of a building or structure upon which the sign is erected is such that any sign is not visible from such residential zone. Next slide, please. So when evaluating the subject lands and the residential land uses to the north, with respect to the residential zone line, within the center line of Fairview Drive that's shown on the image here, it's approximately 14 meters from the current ground sign, the proposed location of the double-sided electric message display. So in evaluating the sign's location beyond the residential zone line and the proximity to the residential apartment to the north, the additional distance between the existing residential building and the zone line provides additional area between the residential uses and the proposed electronic message display, which the applicant has indicated will be used for displaying static images and text only with no flashing, animation, or video. Next slide, please. The current and proposed structure does not directly face the adjacent residential building to the north and is intended to only be visible to pedestrian and vehicular traffic traveling along Fairview Drive. So planning staff are of the opinion that the sign's orientation will mitigate impacts as the view and light will be minimized as it will not directly face the adjacent residential uses. Also adhering to the guidelines of the municipal code, section 478.410, in the residential area hours visible, the applicant has also specified that the proposed electronic message display will not be in operation from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. Of the following morning to ensure that the sign is not visible from any inhabitable living space within the residential zone during the established time frame. Planning staff are of the opinion the proposed electronic message display is its orientation, its intended use, and setbacks are appropriate and provide adequate separation from the adjacent residential uses as stated. Planning staff are of the opinion that the proposed variance is minor in nature and will not have adverse impacts on the surrounding residential uses. And for the reasons mentioned above, the minor variance satisfies the criteria set out in section 45(1) of the Planning Act, and staff recommends that the application be approved. So the finishing slide just showing the notification map. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Josh, for the presentation. Are there any questions from the committee to our planner? Seeing none, just one from myself, just to clarify. So the zoning requirement specifies that that distance required, the 40 meters required, be from the residential zone boundary, and in this case, the city zoning mapping takes the center line as the road as the zone boundary. So it's not taken from the use itself being the building, it's from the boundary of the road, or from the boundary of the zone.
That's correct.
Okay. Any further questions from the committee to staff? Seeing none, so I will just confirm with our clerk, opening up the public portion, just confirming that there have been no delegations to speak to this item.
That's correct. No delegations.
So then I can formally close the public portion of this item. And I'll just ask if the committee members have any further questions of clarification to either the agent or to staff. And I see no hands, so I'll ask if the committee is prepared to move a motion. Virginia?
Yes, I'll move that application A36-2021 for 300 Fairview Drive be approved.
Do I have a seconder for that motion? Michael? Any discussion amongst the committee members on the motion? Seeing none, we'll have the clerk call the vote.
All those in favor of item 3.1, please raise your hand and leave it raised until you hear your name called. Christina Brooks, Tara Gaskin, Dan Nemizniak, Virginia Kershaw, Lee Reiner, Greg Kempa, Michael Bodner. The motion carries unanimously.
Okay, moving right along to our next item, item 3.2. This is another minor variance application, A33-2021 for 21 Slater Street. Is our agent with us this evening? Joseph, welcome.
Hello.
I'll just have you introduce yourself, your address, and the details of your request.
My name is Joseph Petiti. I live at 21 Slater Street, Brantford. It's a corner lot. Pretty simple. The reason I would like to build a garage is I currently store a lot of my tools, bikes, and yeah, so I currently store a lot of my tools, bikes, kids' toys in my basement. We additionally added a third child to our family, and it's a lot of usable space for my kids to play in the basement. I currently, sorry, my wife, the reason why I'd like to build a garage is it's going to add value to the property, enhance the appearance, and I've talked to most of my neighbors, and they're excited for the building to go up. Is there any questions?
Okay, thank you. Do I have any questions from the committee to our applicant? Seeing none, we'll invite staff to join us to present the details of the staff report and the recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, committee. My name is Sean House. I'm a planner here in the Development Planning Department. And we've received a minor variance application for 21 Slater Street. These subject lands are located on the southeast corner of Slater Street and Roberts Avenue. The property is designated residential in the official plan and residential type 1B or R1B in zoning bylaw 160/90. So as shown in this photo, the lands are occupied by a single detached dwelling. And as you can see on the site plan, the applicant's proposing to construct a detached garage, approximately 80 square meters in area, 4.4 meters in height at the southern end of their property. And to facilitate this construction, the applicant requires relief from the bylaw to permit a maximum lot coverage of 14% for an accessory building, whereas 10% is the maximum lot coverage permitted. And this is a photo of where the garage is proposed along Roberts Avenue. And this slide illustrates the elevations that were provided by the applicant of how the garage is going to look. Going back to the site plan, as the previous presentation mentioned, for minor variance to be approved, it should pass the 4 tests of the Planning Act. It should be minor in nature, desirable for the appropriate development or use of the land, and maintain the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw and official plan. So in doing our analysis, we've considered that the proposed increase in maximum lot coverage is indeed minor in nature. It's not expected to have adverse impacts on adjacent properties. It's desirable for the appropriate use of the land. As you know, similar accessory buildings are found throughout the neighborhood in a similar layout as what's being proposed here. And the intent of this regulation in the zoning bylaw and the official plan is just, ensuring there's adequate and sufficient open space remaining on the property, and again, ensuring compatibility with the neighborhood, which we'll still find here once the garage goes up. Again, it's compatible with the character of the neighborhood. There's multiple corner lots like this found throughout with similar layout, having the garage on access through the exterior side yard. One thing I did note in the staff report is that there is an existing shed on the property. It's not shown on this site plan, but I've spoken with the applicant about it. What he's applied for, the 14% maximum lot coverage, doesn't take that shed into account. So that shed will need to come down before the building permit for the garage is issued. And I spoke with the applicant about that, and he is agreeable. And notice of this public meeting was sent out to all neighbors shown on this map within 60 meters. No objections were received. So to conclude, I'd like to recommend that application A33-2021 be approved. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Sean. Do I have any questions from the Committee of Planning staff? Michael?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. I noticed the diagram shows a proposed driveway. Is that part of the application, or is that going to be a separate application?
The driveway will be dealt with through a driveway permit through the Public Works Division of the city. It's not a part of this application.
I see. Okay, that's fine. Thank you very much.
Adverse comments about it.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Greg?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question is regarding the second shed that Sean had mentioned. I don't see that we've recorded. Did we record that condition in the notes or anywhere else in the agenda? I'm just not seeing it listed.
Through you, Mr. Chair, you're correct. It's not listed. The lot coverage issue of this shed will kind of police itself, so to say, as the garage, the building permit for the garage can't be issued because it wouldn't meet the zoning bylaw, because it would be access in excess of what this minor variance itself is permitting.
Forgive me then, and through you, Mr. Chair. The committee's looking at this to make sure that, or sorry, to give clearance around 14% versus 10%, right?
Correct.
So because the other shed is already there, or sorry, what's to stop Mr. Petiti from leaving the shed in place?
Well, there's nothing stopping him from keeping the shed in place, but he wouldn't be able to build the garage.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
Yeah, I think just to add to that, so through the building permit process, they'll review coverage. They'll see that it's over, they'll apply the variance to that at that time. And they'll see that they're permitted 14% and that shed will have to be removed in order to permit the new one.
And then not 15% or 16%, as would be the case if the shed were included.
Exactly.
So we're relying on their mathematics.
That's right. And through this application, it's all documented. So we'll just carry that decision right over to, but you know, it's committee's discretion if they'd like to add a separate condition to keep that documented.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any further questions of staff at this time? Seeing none, so we'll go to the public portion of this item, and I'll confirm with our clerk that we have no delegated residents delegated to speak.
That's correct.
And with that being noted, we can close the public portion, and I'll ask the committee members if they have any further questions of clarification to the property owner or to staff. Just one, Joseph, just for clarification, just for the meeting minutes, for the record, Sean had mentioned, our planner Sean had mentioned that you've had that discussion. You're aware that that smaller shed needs to be removed.
Definitely, like, yeah, it's gonna go. That is, I don't want the property looking junky. That's not what I'm about.
You're gonna have plenty of space in the new
Yes.
shed.
Yeah. As soon as I get the go ahead, I will remove the shed from property.
Okay. We'll see what the committee would like to do to deal with that. If kind of your word is enough, or if they like to add a condition, we'll leave it up to the committee at the time of the decision. Any further questions of clarification from the committee? Seeing none, so now I'll ask if the committee is prepared to move a motion. Virginia?
Yes, I'll move that application A 33-2021 for 21 Slater Street be approved as noted in the agenda.
Okay, seeking a seconder. Greg? So the motion on the floor is exactly as outlined in the staff report. Or any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, I will have the clerk call the vote.
All those in favor of item 3.2, please raise your hand and leave it raised until you hear your name called. Christina Brooks, Tara Gaskin, Dan Nemizniak, Virginia Kershaw, Lee Reiner, Greg Kempa, and Michael Bodnar. The motion carries unanimously.
Okay. Next item on the agenda, 3.3. This is another minor variance application for 118 Usher Street. This is application A31 2021. Is our applicant or owner present?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Welcome. Please state your name and address for the record and provide us with the details of your request.
Yeah, my name is Mazal Latif. I live at 118 Usher Street. I've applied and the minor variance is going to request relief from section of zoning bylaw to permit a converted dwelling. Our lot is smaller, it's 272 meters square, whereas 360 meters square is required.
Okay, any questions from the committee to our applicant? I just have one, the staff report includes comments received from the public, some concerns. Have you had a chance to review those?
Yeah, so is it
If you haven't yet, I assume you have a copy of the staff report with you. And if you needed some extra time to review those, perhaps we can see if there's any more questions from the committee, have staff present, and then we can give you an opportunity to address any of those concerns. Perhaps some of the concerns could be addressed by staff as well. So I will ask if the committee has any other questions of our applicant. Okay, seeing none, so we'll have staff join us. Sarah's here to present the staff report and the recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, Chair and Committee. My name is Sarah Haig. I'm the Development Planner presenting minor variance application A37-2021 for 118 Usher Street. Planning staff have received a minor variance application for 118 Usher Street. The property is located within an existing residential neighborhood on the south side of Usher Street. The lands are designated residential in the official plan and residential conversion zone in the zoning bylaw. Next slide, please. The lands are currently occupied by an existing one-story single detached dwelling, as shown here. Next slide, please. At the time of this application was submitted, tandem parking was only permitted for accessory dwelling units and not converted dwellings, which triggered the need for a minor variance to permit tandem parking. However, on August 24th, 2021, City Council passed bylaw 166-2021 to amend the zoning bylaw with a number of housekeeping amendments, one of which included tandem parking for converted dwellings. As the proposed provision is now permitted pursuant to the zoning bylaw, a minor variance for tandem parking is no longer required. As such, the applicant is seeking only one minor variance to permit a converted dwelling with a lot area of 270 square meters, rounded from 272.8 square meters, whereas 360 square meters is required. If approved, this minor variance will allow the applicant to obtain building permits to convert the basement into a separate dwelling unit. In order for a minor variance to be approved, an application must meet the 4 tests of Section 45 of the Planning Act. Section 7.8.2.1.3 of the zoning bylaw, 160-90, establishes a minimum lot area requirement to ensure that a lot is large enough to accommodate a converted dwelling, off-street parking, and amenity space. The single detached dwelling already exists, and no additions or exterior renovations are required to accommodate the additional unit. The decrease in minimum lot area for a converted dwelling is minor in nature, as it will not change the character of the neighborhood, and it is not expected to have an adverse impact on adjacent properties. The application is desirable for the development and use of the land, as the lot will still provide area for off-street parking, and the proposed infill development makes efficient use of the land and the existing building stock in Brantford. It is planning staff's opinion that the lot area is adequate to accommodate the additional dwelling unit, as it provides the required off-street parking and amenity space, and is in the opinion that the proposed variance meets the intent of the zoning bylaw. The official plan encourages a wide range of housing types to accommodate the anticipated population. Section 3.1.d of the official plan promotes a supply of new affordable housing in a variety of locations, dwelling types, and tenures. It is the opinion of planning staff that the proposal will maintain the general intent and purpose of the official plan. The purpose and intent of zoning bylaw 160-90 and the official plan is being maintained, as converted dwellings are permitted uses, and the minor variance will facilitate the development of a new dwelling unit, which will contribute to the city's range of housing stock. Next slide, please. Residents within 60 meters of the subject property have been notified of this application. We did receive 2 written and 1 verbal comment on this application specific to the tandem parking, which is no longer being considered by the committee. No comments on the requested variance for lot area have been received. In conclusion, staff recommend that application A37-2021 be approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Any questions from the committee to our planner? I see no. Michael?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. To the planner, are you saying that parking is not going to be a problem?
I'm saying that the applicant meets the provisions of the bylaw in terms of parking.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any further questions of our planner from the committee? Seeing none, so I'll go to the public portion of this hearing, where I will note that, again, the staff report does include the public comments received as part of the circulation, the written comments, and I'll just confirm with our clerk that there are no delegations registered to speak to this item.
That is correct.
Thank you very much. With that being said, I can close the public portion. And I'll ask the committee if there are any further questions of clarification from our applicant or staff. Seeing none. So I'll ask if the committee is prepared to move a motion. Virginia?
Yes, through you. I'd like to move that application A31-2021 for 118 Usher Street be approved as noted within our agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Lee? Is there any discussion on the motion? No discussion. We can have our clerk call the vote.
All those in favor of item 3.3, please raise your hand and leave it raised until you hear your name called. Christina Brooks, Tara Gaskin, Dan Nemizniak, Virginia Kershaw, Lee Reiner, Greg Kempa, Michael Bodner. The motion carries unanimously.
Next item, consent application B19 2021 30 Grandview Street. Did we get a hold of our applicant?
Yes, we did.
Excellent. And he's here with us?
Yep, we're just moving him over.
Hey,
Mr. Evans, welcome.
can you hear me?
We can hear you. We can see you.
Perfect.
I'll just have you introduce yourself and your application request.
Okay, I'm Andrew Evans. I have property at 30 Grandview Street. When we purchased it, it was legally described as 3 whole lots on a plan. So when we did the survey, we realized that the center lot was, it needed to have a setback from the house. So that's what we're making the application to do. Basically, the lot 15 of Plan 206, we're deleting 4 feet from it and adding it to lot 16 of Plan 206 to allow it to have the proper setback.
Okay, very technical in nature. Any questions from the committee to our applicant? No questions from the committee, so we'll have our planner join us to present the staff recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. We've received this consent application for 30 Grandview Street, the municipal address. And the subject lands are located on the north side of Grandview Street, east of Burnley Avenue, south of Huff Avenue. It's actually a through lot between Grandview Street and Huff Avenue. Right across the road is Burnley Park. A single detached dwelling currently occupies the eastern portion of the site. So as the applicant had mentioned, there's one municipal address for this property, but it's actually comprised of 3 whole lots in a plan of subdivision. And because each lot is described in accordance with this plan, each one can then be conveyed on its own without a consent application. So with this, the applicant has recently confirmed to me that lot 14 has already been sold and conveyed to a third party. So that would be, part 3 and part 4 on this site plan. So for the purposes of this application, we're really only considering part 1 and part 2 here, what I've outlined in red. So as the applicant had mentioned, this boundary between lot 15 and lot 16 is currently right up against the house. It's shown here in a black dashed line, and he's proposing to sever and create a new lot on this red line, which would give him a 1.2 meter setback from that existing house. And this would result in an 11 meter lot, which would be part 2 on this plan, and retain a 14.7 meter wide lot that would accommodate the existing single detached dwelling. To recommend approval on a consent application, the Committee of Adjustment must have regard for section 5124 of the Planning Act. And this is a list of criteria that include if the plan conforms to the city's official plan, what the dimensions and shapes of the proposed lots are like, and the adequacy and of utilities and municipal services. Our official plan also lists criteria, including if no extension of municipal services are required and if the lot will have frontage on a public road. So while 2 lots of record currently exist at this location, the proposed consent will result in a lot that does provide a more appropriate setback for the existing single detached dwelling. The severed lands will be able to adequately accommodate a single detached dwelling, and each property will meet the requirements of the RC zone and have a direct access to Grandview Street. Within the immediate neighborhood, there's properties of similar width, depth, area immediately adjacent to the severed lands, and the creation of these lots won't restrict development of any adjacent property. One thing I did note in my report was that for the purposes of the zoning bylaw, Grandview Street is considered the front lot line. So any future development that occurs on these lands will need to take that into consideration when looking at what the minimum front yard and minimum rear yards are. Notice of this application was circulated to all properties within 60 meters, shaded in gray on this map. We have not received any objections. So to conclude, and having regard for section 5124 of the Planning Act, I do recommend that application B19-2021 be approved. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Sean. Any questions from the committee? Michael?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Still getting used to this iPad. So you mentioned that to the staff person, you mentioned that part 3 and part 4 have already been sold.
Through the chair, yes.
Okay, so dealing with part 2, then that's just basic housekeeping then. Like, like it's not going to affect part 3 and part 4 then.
Through the chair, just give me 1 second. I just want to have the site plan in front of me.
Okay.
So to clarify, your question was, creating part 2, it's not going to have any impact on part 3 or part 4, correct?
That's correct. I guess my question would be, you're just moving the goalpost.
Yeah, it is very similar to a boundary adjustment.
Okay.
But it is lot creation through consent.
Thank you. And thank you through you, Mr. Chair.
Any further questions from the committee to staff? Seeing none, so we can go to the public portion of the hearing, and I'll just confirm that we have no registered delegations for this item.
That's correct.
Thank you. And I can formally close the public portion. And I'll ask if the committee have any further questions of clarification of the applicant or to staff. I see no questions, so I will look for a motion. Greg?
Mr. Chair, I'd move that application B19/2021 be approved as shown in tonight's agenda.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Lee? Any discussion on that motion? No discussion. We'll have the clerk call the vote.
All those in favor of item 3.4, please raise your hand and leave your hand raised until you hear your name called. Christina Brooks, Tara Gaskin, Dan Nemesniak, Virginia Kershaw, Lee Reiner, Greg Kempa, Michael Bodner. The motion carries unanimously.
Okay, 3.5. This is a consent and minor variance application. Consent application B21/2021 and minor variance A35/2021 for 23 Robinson Ave. Our applicants are here. Len, welcome. We'll just have you unmute yourself so we can hear you.
There we go.
Yep, perfect.
Perfect. Yeah, my name's, oh, go ahead.
Yep, well, you've been watching, so you know the drill.
I know the drill. I'm ready.
Good.
Yeah,
Go
perfect.
ahead.
Yeah, my name's Len Baker. This is my wife, Karen. We've been living at 23 Robinson Ave for about 25 years. There has been a separate lot beside us. The current home has encroached onto that lot, so we've asked for a minor variance. Where, what is it? We have 346 square meters where 350 square meters is required. And that's why we're here today.
450.
Very nice, simple. Simple presentation.
Perfect.
Any questions from the committee to our applicants? No questions. So we'll have our planning staff present the recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members. My name is Sarah Haig, and I will be presenting consent and minor variance application B21/2021 and A35/2021. Next slide. Planning staff have received a consent and minor variance application for 23 Robinson Avenue. The property is located within an existing residential neighborhood south of Corbin Street East and north of Glenwood Drive. The lands are designated residential in the official plan and residential type 1B or R1B in the zoning bylaw. Next slide. The lands are currently occupied by an existing one-story single detached dwelling, which includes a small addition to the original structure on the north side of the dwelling, as well as accessory structures, a large deck, a driveway leading to the detached garage located south of the dwelling, and a second driveway off Robinson Avenue accessing the northern portion of the property, as shown here. Next slide, please. This photo was taken of the northern portion of the property, which shows the approximate frontage of the proposed severed lot. Next slide. The applicant is proposing to sever the existing property into 2 lots for the purposes of developing a 1.5-story single detached dwelling on the severed lands for occupancy by the owners. The existing single detached dwelling, deck, and accessory structures on the retained lands will remain. To facilitate the consent application, a minor variance is required to provide relief from section 7.3.2.1.1 of zoning bylaw 160-90 to permit a lot area of 346 square meters for the severed lot, whereas 450 square meters is required. The Planning Act sets out standards to which the provincial and local interests, policies, and goals are implemented. Section 5124 of the Planning Act lists the criteria that the Committee of Adjustment must have regard for when considering a consent application for approval. These criteria include if the plan conforms to the official plan, the dimensions and shapes of the proposed lot, and the adequacy of utilities and municipal services. Section 9.3 of the official plan also outlines criteria for the subdivision of land and stipulates when consents are appropriate, which includes when a plan of subdivision is deemed unnecessary and where the application conforms to the policies of the official plan, and no more than 3 new lots are being created, and all lots have frontage on a municipal road, and do not require that municipal services be extended for the creation of easements, boundary adjustment, rights of way, lot additions, and long-term leases, which this application meets those terms. This consent application is for the purpose of creating a new residential lot within an existing residential neighborhood. Both the severed and retained parcels will have frontage on a municipal roadway. If approved, both lots can accommodate a dwelling while still providing space for the required parking and amenity space. The proposed severance will result in 1 new lot, and staff is of the opinion that it maintains the character of the established neighborhood. The subject property is a double lot, as mentioned by the applicant. It is consisting of lots 31 and 32 of Plan 294. The majority of the parcels on the street are single lots and are very similar to the size of the proposed severed and retained lots. The creation of this new lot will not restrict the development of any adjacent properties. Any development on this site will be subject to all city requirements, including site plan control. Planning staff have given regard to section 5124 of the Planning Act and are satisfied that the application is desirable and compatible with the surrounding area and will not result in any adverse impacts on surrounding properties. In order for a minor variance application to be approved, an application must meet the 4 tests of section 45 of the Planning Act. It is the opinion of planning staff that the minor variance requested for the reduced lot area from 450 square meters to 346 square meters for the severed lot is minor in nature and appropriate for the development of the lands, as the new lot will be able to accommodate an adequate building width and area with appropriate front, rear, and side yards, and the retained lot will accommodate the existing dwelling as well as appropriate yards. Both lots also provide adequate outdoor amenity space, vehicle access, parking, landscaping, and snow storage while contributing to a mix of housing options within the neighborhood. The minor variance meets the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw and the official plan by resulting in a lot that will appropriately accommodate a single detached dwelling, which is consistent with the existing character of the neighborhood. The severed lot is subject to site plan control, which will provide the city and ward councilors with an opportunity to review the functionality of the site, placement of the buildings, driveway location, and overall design of the new dwelling to ensure its compatibility and integration with the neighborhood. All other technical requirements of the city will be addressed at the site plan control stage. Planning staff are of the opinion that the proposed minor variance meets the 4 tests of section 45 of the Planning Act. Next slide, please. Residents within 60 meters or 60 meters of the subject property have been notified of the application. We received 1 verbal comment in support of this application. In conclusion, staff recommend that applications B21-2021 and A35-2021 be approved. Thank you. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thanks, Sarah.
Any questions from the committee to staff? Seeing none, I will open the public portion of this hearing. So as the planning staff mentioned, some verbal comments received in support. And you must be good neighbors.
Yes, we are.
And I'll ask and confirm with our clerk that no further comments or delegations have registered to speak to this item.
That's correct.
Thank you. So I can formally close this public portion of this item, and I'll ask if the committee have any questions of clarification of the applicant or to staff. Seeing none, I will look for a motion. Virginia?
Yes, I'd like to move application B 21-2021 and A 35-2021 for 23 Robinson Ave be approved as noted within the agenda.
And a seconder, Greg? Any discussion from the committee on the motion? No discussion. We'll have the clerk call the vote.
All those in favor of item 3.5, please raise your hand and leave it raised until you hear your name called. Christina Brooks, Tara Gaskin, Dan Nemesniak, Virginia Kershaw, Lee Reiner, Greg Kempa, Michael Bodner. The motion carries unanimously.
Item 3.6, application for consent B22 2021 for 232 Mount Pleasant Street. Our agent has joined us. Welcome.
Thank you.
Please state your name, and I see you've got your presentation up. You may proceed.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Odette Gomes. I'm a planner with IBI Group, and I am here representing the property owners. Next slide, please. So the subject property is located at 232 Mount Pleasant Street, and our request tonight is for the creation of one new lot, which is consistent with the new lot creations that have already taken place on both sides of this proposed property. Next slide, please. So our request is again for the creation of one new lot. It'll have frontage of 13.85 meters, excuse me, and an area of 565.1 meters squared. And then the retained portion will have frontage of 13.93 meters and an area of 585.9 square meters in area. So again, this is in keeping with the lots surrounding the property. The proposed severance does meet with the intent of the official plan and the zoning bylaw. Next slide, please. So this severance was originally approved back in 2017. One of the conditions of the final approval of this severance was the removal of the existing house. Unfortunately, the homeowners had difficulty in removing the tenants and were therefore unable to demolish the house in time before the application expired. So that problem has now been resolved, and here we are again with the same request. So next slide, please. So again, this request tonight is essentially identical to what was approved back in 2017. And I think I'll just keep it that simple for now. And we're just here in support of staff's report and the recommendation for approval. And we'll just leave it to questions and provide you any more clarification that you require. So thank you.
Thank you, Odette. Any questions from the committee to the agent? I see no questions, so we can have staff join us to present the recommendation.
Thank you, Chair and Committee. My name is Sarah Haig, a development planner, and I will be presenting on consent application B22-2021 for 232 Mount Pleasant Street. Planning staff have received a consent application for 232 Mount Pleasant Street. The subject lands are located on the east side of Mount Pleasant Street, south of Maggie Street, and north of Gilkison Street. The lands are designated residential in the official plan and residential type 1B or R1B in the zoning bylaw. Next slide, please. An existing single detached dwelling and accessory structure are located on the property. Single detached dwellings are located to the north and south, and Lions Park to the east. To the west is a mix of residential and agricultural uses. The lands to the south are being developed as 19-unit condominium development. Next slide, please. The applicant is proposing to sever the lot into two lots for the purposes of developing each lot with a single detached dwelling. The existing single attached dwelling on the lot will be demolished as the existing single attached dwelling is in the middle of the lot and over the proposed lot lines. The subject lands have been subject to multiple planning applications, including consents and minor variance applications B1519 2027, A13 to A16 2027, and B14 2018, sorry. Or 2017 and 2018. In 2017, the applicant proposed to create a total of 5 separate lots, as well as a lot adjustment for the rear portion of the lot through those applications. Minor variances were also required in order to create the lots, including a variance for each lot to have a lot width of 13.75 meters and a maximum lot coverage of 45% for each lot. The consent and minor variances were approved by the Committee of Adjustment, but due to unforeseen circumstances with tenants vacating the dwelling unit, the demolition of the existing single detached dwelling at 232 Mount Pleasant Street did not take place. Therefore, the condition for demolition was not satisfied, and the consent applications B15 2017 and B16 2017 lapsed. As minor variances are final and binding and stay with the lands, no additional variances are required for the creation of the proposed lots. As a result of the lapsed consent applications B15 2017 and B16 2017, the current consent application before the committee B22 2021 looks to create 2 lots similar to those proposed back in 2017. In 2018, the applicant applied for a lot adjustment B14 2018, which severed a portion of the rear yard from 232 Mount Pleasant Street to be transferred to the lot at 242 Mount Pleasant Street. The application was approved by the Committee of Adjustment, and the applicant fulfilled the required conditions. As previously mentioned, the applicant is now applying to create 2 lots from the existing lot at 232 Mount Pleasant Street. The Planning Act sets the standard for which provincial and local interest policies and goals are implemented. Section 5124 of the Planning Act lists the criteria for the Committee of Adjustment must have regard for when considering consent applications for approval. These criteria include if the plan conforms to the official plan, the dimensions and shapes of the proposed lots, the adequacy of utilities and municipal services. Section 9.3G -I or 2I of the official plan also lists criteria for consent applications, including if no extension or improvement of municipal services are required, and if the lot will have frontage on a public road. The consent application is for the purpose of creating a new residential lot within a growing residential area. But both the severed and retained parcels will have frontage on a municipal roadway. If approved, both lots can accommodate a dwelling unit while still providing space for required parking and amenity space. The existing single attached dwelling located in the center of the property is required to be demolished as a condition of this consent. The proposed severance will result in 1 new lot, and staff is of the opinion that it maintains the character of the established residential neighborhood, as the severed and retained lots are similar to other lots in the neighborhood when viewed from the street. Staff is of the opinion that if approved, there will be no negative impact on the streetscape along Mount Pleasant Street or any of the abutting properties. The creation of this new lot will not restrict the development of any adjacent property. Any redevelopment of the site will be subject to all city requirements, including site plan control. The site plan control process will provide the city and the ward councilors with an opportunity to review the functionality of the site, the placement of the buildings, the driveway location, protection of street trees, and the overall design of the new dwelling to ensure its compatibility and integration within the neighborhood. As the existing single detached is proposed to be demolished and both lots will be developed as single detached dwellings, site plan control will be required for both the retained and severed lots. Planning staff have given regard to section 5124 of the Planning Act and are satisfied that the application is desirable and compatible with the surrounding area and will not result in any adverse impacts on surrounding properties. Next slide, please. Notice of public hearing was issued by personal mail, which was five notices, and by posting a sign on site. The application was also previously circulated in June of 2017 and October of 2018 as part of the previous consent and minor variance applications. No public comments have been received. In conclusion, staff recommend that application B22 2021 be approved. Thank you. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Sarah. Any questions from the committee to planning staff? No questions. So I'll confirm with our clerk that there are no public delegations registered to speak for this item.
That is correct.
Thank you, and I can formally close the public portion of this item. And I'll ask if the committee has any final questions of clarification to either the agent or to staff. Seeing no hands, I will look for a committee member to move a motion. Lee?
So you, Mr. Chair, I'll move that application B 22/2021 be approved as in the outline.
Thank you. And a seconder, Greg. He's quick. Greg's quick. Any discussion on the motion? I see no discussion, so we can call the vote.
All those in favor of item 3.6, please raise your hand and leave it raised so you hear your name called. Christina Brooks, Tara Gaskin, Dan Namizniak, Virginia Kershaw, Lee Reiner, Greg Kempa, Michael Bodnar. The motion carries unanimously.
Okay, so that concludes the items, the applications, at least on our agenda. We'll continue to work through the agenda, just confirming with the clerk that we have no other presentations or delegations.
Correct.
And we have no items for consideration.
Correct.
And under consent items, so we're looking to I'm looking for a mover and a seconder for the adoption of the minutes from both August and September. Has everyone had a chance to review those minutes? Just one question to our clerk. Why both? Why August and September?
Through the chair, in reviewing the meeting, there was actually no mover for the minutes last month.
Whose fault is that?
We missed a step, so they're back before you.
I'll go back and review the last episode of Committee of Adjustment Brantford. I might have been too quick. August and September, we've all reviewed the minutes, no errors or omissions. Nothing. I'm looking for a mover. I need a clear hand. Lee is my mover. A seconder. Virginia, thank you. Any discussion on the motion? And no recorded vote is required, so I'll just call show of hands. All those in favor? Opposed? None? Carried. Hopefully that was clear enough.
Yes, thank you.
Item 7, resolutions. I have no resolutions noted on the agenda. And the final item is notices of motion, and I see I have no notices of motion. Unless the clerk or staff have anything else.
Not at this time.
Excellent. So in that case, I'll be looking for a motion to adjourn. Virginia? See, I waited for you there. Thank you. And a seconder? Lee? All those in favor? Yes. And we are adjourned. Once again, we'll see you next month. What is the date of the next meeting?
The next meeting is, let me just take a look. The next meeting will be on November 3rd.
November 3rd. I will see you all on November 3rd. Stay safe, have fun.